Hello, Trisha Morris here at Club Scrap with the Mobile Office Notebook Project. This thing is absolutely adorable and will fit perfectly into your purse and probably take a pretty good beating in there because who knows what happens inside of our purses. Makes great teacher's gifts. Here's one that hasn't been decorated. It's got a cute little miniature silver pen and then these interlocking loops made of paper. In fact, I just wanted to learn how to make some closures this time around, so I came up with this cool guy to hold everything together. It's made of jumbo shipping tags, and there are 3 elements on the inside of this piece. We have a little removable notebook, a notepad with a really clever binding, and then an angled pocket that can hold business cards, return address labels, postage, and the like. And the whole thing tri-folds and is held together by your little pen. Here are some other samples that we've put together. I made this one out of the You've Got Mail collection that was released in October of 2018. Really decorates quite beautifully and very simply as well. This only took me about maybe half an hour to really add those finishing touches. And then Karen made this one out of the Daffodils collection with this adorable little floral embellishment. Check it out. Oh, that's where the notebook lives. I think I maybe absconded with it for some other reason. And here we have a Steamworks. This was a February 2018 release from Club Scrap, and the embellishments and everything fit on here beautifully as well. So no matter how you decorate it, the world is your oyster. But let's get started on making the project itself. You'll be able to find a copy of the printed instructions along with this kit that will be online. So if you want, you can print that and have it handy. I've got some nice helpful illustrations on here, but also I'll walk you through the project step by step. I'll begin by removing the 2 manila shipping tags from the kit, and then you'll also need a score pal. Let's place 1 jumbo shipping tag into the score pal with the reinforced hole on the left. We'll make several scores. The first one's at 1 inch. And then I'm going to flip the tag and score it 3.5, 4, and 7.5. All right, let's remove this tag and set it aside. And then we'll put the other shipping tag into the score pal with the hole on the right. So I'm scoring at 1/2 inch, 3 3/4, 4 1/8, so that's halfway between 4 and 4 1/4 is 4 1/8. And then for the last score, I'm going to flip the tag over and score it 7 1/4. Now those flips aren't absolutely necessary, but it helps keep things clear as we construct the book. We'll set the score pal aside. Next, locate the tiny little piece of tan paper from your kit. This is, oh gosh, it's really little. It's 1.5 by 3. And this is going to become the loop that stores our pen. So to show you where we're headed, it's these 3 little elements that hold the pen. What we're going to do is take this and wrap it around the pen itself and match up those corners. Kind of form a little indentation maybe where the loop reaches the pen. Then allow this to open up, and if you want, you can remove the pen. And this is the part where you need a needle tip applicator with some bookbinding glue in it, or you just need a handy way to apply bookbinding glue. I just filled it, so it's pretty full of glue. Now you don't just want to apply glue to the edge, you want it to be pretty close to the indentation you made for the loop. And just sort of hold that all together until it's dry. Next, take a grid ruler and we're going to make a small mark on the edge of our folded loop at 1/2 inch and 1 inch. You can take a scissors and simply cut them into 3 1/2-inch pieces. And now you have the loops that we need later to hold our pen in place. Next, I'll reference my instructions and arrange the 2 tags I scored earlier in this position that you can see in the instructions. So each tag is a little different. The tag on the left has a wider spine than the one on the right. And if you look at where we're headed when this whole thing gets folded into place, that's why this spine needs to be different size than this one. And we want to make sure that we head in the right direction. So I'm placing my 2 tags side by side. I want the widest spine on my left and the narrowest spine on my right, and I want the bumps of the scores to be facing up here, and then the indentation is facing down on the outer edges, because remember I had you flip the tag during scoring. So basically, let me show you how this sort of comes together. I'm going to just fold inward on these bumps and fold outward on this one on the end. So essentially this reinforced flap goes back, and I'll fold in on these bumps. I'm burying that bump. I'm going to reverse, I'm going to fold back on this reinforced tag area. Eventually what will happen is these two pieces will be adhered together on the ends to form our spine, and then our trifold will work accordingly. I grabbed my gorgeous Club Scrap cutting mat. If you don't already have one of these, I can't recommend it enough. And we're going to take a ruler and a pencil, and on the tag that is on the left side of your setup, I want you to make a couple of measurements so that we can cut the loops for our tags. Let's mark 1 inch down from the top, 1.5, 2.5, and 3. So I'm just making those marks right along the score line on the left edge of the tag, which is about 1 inch from the edge. Next, I'll take my craft knife and cut along those marked areas so that I'm cutting a slit right into the score line from one mark to the next, from the third mark to the fourth mark, and I'm going a little bit past that mark. Here we go, we'll put a slot right in that area, right along the score line. Now on the other tag, we need to have our slot right, what will end up being the spine of the book. So it's different than this one where the marks were over by the reinforced hole. This is the side with the narrow spine, and we will measure 1 3/4 and 2 1/4. So I will cut also from those two, between those two marks, to make a slit. I want that right in the spine. Okay. Now remember those 3 little pieces we made earlier, those 3 little loops? I'm going to take those again. The one that we just created, that slot, let's slide in from the back to the front. And we'll make it so that the tail of our little loop goes up to the edge of our tag. And you can actually tack that in place. So the tail of the loop goes to the edge of this tag that was started out kind of on the right side of our workspace. Just tack that down. So the loop is going to have this long thing on the outside that will end up in a circle right here. Then these other 2 loops can go into the slots that we made. So I'm entering from my working side, the side that I've been working on all along. And remember how I told you this goes backward, this goes back, so these loops will stick out the side. And a good reference point is that the edges of those loops line up with the edge of the tag, just like they did before. So I can take a small amount of bookbinding glue and tack down my loops. I call those the loop tails. I'm going to tack those down. And then we can actually seal our flap with the bookbinding glue. Trapping those and hiding. We're hiding those loop tails, which on my original prototype I didn't do that. I added the loops later and just trying to figure out how this closing structure was going to work, and it ended up being a really good solution. Okay. Now to form our book, I'll take this piece and set it on top of my other spine, thus hiding the loop tail at the spine. Very handy. So just applying some glue there, lay this on top, line everything up so that it can close like a regular book spine. Check it from the back to make sure you're well aligned. Once the outside structure of the book is formed, we'll be able to create all the components that go on the inside. So here, this is the left side that has the reinforced hole folded back and adhered with the loop tails hidden between. Over here, we're going to turn this into a little bit of a pocket. So I will burnish this down with my bone folder. And then instead of just completely attaching this, I'll add a little bit of bookbinding glue on this corner and on this corner. And then hold it down in place until it, till it bonds. And then you have a little spot where you can still add more items if you would like. And that essentially completes the outer wrapping. Again, your wide spine here, narrow spine here. So this folds in and then over, and then this folds in. And then you should be able to take your pen and slide it through all of those little loops. It will stay together better once you get stuff in there. And then your notebook comes together. Next, let's build the inside pieces for each element and to go into the book. Let's work on the booklet assembly, and to get started we're going to have to make a small alteration to the 4x6 index cards that I gave you. Let's trim them vertically at 3 3/4. So I'm just going to take the whole works. I think my trimmer can handle it. 3 3/4 vertically, and I have the red line of the index card on my left. No problem. There, now they're the right height now. While the trimmer is out, you can go ahead and take this pocket envelope that's in your kit, place it horizontally into the trimmer with the flap on the right, and cut it at 3 3/4. You've removed the flap, and this is no longer needed. Our next job is to simply fold each of these index cards in half, and rather than burnishing each card individually after it's folded, I'll just fold all of them and stack them together and burnish at once. Okay, so now they're all folded. Nothing's been burnished. Just stack them, flip them over, and just give them a nice firm crease. You also have another longer piece, and this size should match the size of your index cards. We'll fold this in half. And then you have this skinny black piece of cardstock. This will get folded in half. If you want, you can score it, or otherwise you can just fold it in half. And I always call this hot dog style fold, meaning you're folding it more like a hot dog bun would be folded rather than a hamburger bun. Okay, so I think everything's ready to go. Here's our destination for these pieces. This is what's going to form our little notebook. It will be stitched, so let's prepare for that. Take each individual 4x6 page, which is now 3 3/4 by 6, and nest all those pieces together. And then take the tan cover that you made as well. To get it ready for stitching, I'll use a stitching cradle and a paper piercing tool. And if you don't have one of these, they're just super duper handy. It's just a little jig that I made in order to make stitching easier. But I also have another awesome tool on your instructions for you. If you turn to the back, or turn to page 2, it may not be printed on the back for you, there is a scale drawing of where the stitching holes need to be. It's labeled booklet piercing, and what I do is just fold the paper along the template. And then you can put the whole works, the outer cover, and all those inside pages into your stitching cradle. And then you drop that template into there, and you match up the bottom and top edges of your template with the papers in the cradle. I'll take a piercing tool or an awl and just pierce through every layer of paper and that tan cover in one poke. And you'll notice with the stitching cradle what a great job it does getting through the exact fold of the piece. If you don't have one of these, you absolutely can use a cork board to substitute for the stitching cradle. It's just a little bit harder to get it right into the fold like I did here. You will also need a tapestry needle or a blunt tipped needle or bookbinding needle. If you purchase the Retreat in a Box, you will find a needle in your French link stitch kit as well. So a simple basic pamphlet stitch that I've chosen to do here. There's any number of ways you can make this, but I'll thread the needle with wax linen and enter the middle hole from the inside of the fold, and then pull until you've got a 3-inch tail. And then you can go into one of the other holes on the edge, on the outside. So it's either hole 1 or hole 3. Depends on how you turn it. So now I'm back on the inside again, and I have one long stitch on the outside. Go right back through the middle. And now I'll go through the other hole I didn't go through before. Back to the inside. And all I have to do is tie my thread tails together so that the knot forms at the center. Now when I first make my initial crossover, I'll take my fingernail and just push down on that to hold the knot in place, and then come around and make the other knot. Let's use scissors to just trim those tails. Easy peasy. Beautiful. Now if you'd like, you can take a corner rounder, or corner chomper rather, and I'm going to use the 1/2 inch setting. You can probably put the whole works right in. Maybe not. It might be a little much. I'll do half of it at a time. So make sure it's in there. And just trim the outside corners. It kind of gives it more of that composition book feel. Then you have the black hot dog folded piece. So I'll just place this over my little booklet. Pick up one of the flaps and just squiggle on some bookbinding glue. Flip it, lift it, and squiggle on again. There. Just kind of hang on to it until it cures. The next question is, how do we install this into its rightful place on this? And I've got a really clever item for you. This is a long, narrow piece of paper that's been trimmed so that it's grain short, meaning it folds easily this way as opposed to this way. This will be really difficult. The paper wants to go like this. So let's separate just the back cover of our little notebook and place this piece into it, this long, narrow piece, and just fold it around to the back so that the ends meet level. I'm not going super, super tight. I want to be able to slide the notebook on and off, but I also don't want it falling off. So now I've just looped it. Now I have a little paper loop here. The way I adhere my paper loops is I'll put a little bit of adhesive on this end, close this other one, and a little bit of adhesive on this front edge. So here's the back and then the front. So when I go around, I have just all the adhesive in the right place to make my loop. It's so nice to be able to share these tips with the camera so you can see close up what the technique is, and that way you don't have glue oozing out anywhere it shouldn't. We'll take the cover and position it so that the 2 loops are on our left. You have your cover, and the very next area should be the spot where this notebook is going to fit very, very well. And we'll even attach this so that the ends of the loop are facing the book. And rather than attach the loop to the middle, where it's more apt to fall out, I'll kind of shove the loop on a little further to my notebook cover, and that will be the positioning here. So you'll have the loop a little closer to the spine, but not all the way to the corner. You'll apply adhesive to the loop only, because you don't want to glue the book into the cover. And then attach it to our cover. Check it out. Just burnish that a little bit. So now this is perfectly removable. I guess when I'm installing it, you want to make sure that the red line, the classic red line of the 4x5 card is at the top, so it looks right. Ta-da! Element 1 is installed. Now let's make the notepad for element 2. Your supplies remaining include a bunch of trimmed pages, and then the envelope should be a little bit different size, so make sure you don't grab the envelope for this step. I believe I've pre-scored this other piece for you. It's actually the notepad wrap, and if you study where we're headed, all of these pages will be bound into our little notepad wrap with a rubber band and a paper clip. So clever. To get things started, let's take one of these white pages and we'll place it on our work surface. And you can look in your instructions, there's an illustration that says 3 by 3 3/4 page, and it shows you a diagram of our plan of punching holes into these pages so we can bind them together easily. So those measurements are 3/8 from the top edge and a 1/2 inch from each outside edge. I'm going to use the 0 center of my ruler, and if the ruler is right side up and the 0 is right at the top here, I'll go down 3 squares. Now every square in the ruler, whether it's made by a dashed line or a solid line, is 1/8 of an inch. So the first dashed line here now over the edge of my page is 1/8. Now I've got 1/4, and now I have 3/8. And then I'll center it. So in other words, when I'm centered, that means my reading on the right is 1.5 inches and my reading on the left is 1.5 inches. So I can make a line right at, I'm going to do it right at the 1 inch mark on each side, which is a 1/2 inch from the edge. And I'll make a little T right at each 1 inch mark also, which is a 1/2 inch from the edge. When I move that aside, that's my target center. Where that T intersects is my target for when I punch my pages. Now it depends on what kind of punch you're using at this point. If you're using a regular, office style, like this kind of a punch, you can do a few pages at a time. I'm going to be using this Crop-A-Dile that's just a punch. It's not an eyelet setter, just a punch, and the blade or the handle locks, so I'll unlock the handle. And now it expands. And I'm going to open. A lot of people have this punch, didn't realize it opened, so you can see exactly where the punch is going to happen. I was able to punch my entire stack of pages all at once, incredibly. So if you have enough, good hand strength, you should be able to do it. Now you can, I'm not sure if you can see, but I'm lining up that intersecting point right in the opening of my hole. Boom. Then I'll just kind of regroup here, realign over on this side, center up my T, and squeeze pretty firmly, but it does a really nice job. Then I need to transfer the punch location to my outer tan wrap. In order to do that, I just took one of the pages and I placed it so that it's sitting right up against the lip of my little notepad wrap. And then I'll mark the location of the holes. And I'm only doing it on the lip. I'm not going to punch through the back. And I'll transfer those holes. Okay. Here's my original page. Just make sure I have that lined up correctly. Boy, they're really good. I'm really pleased with this. And that goes in. Okay, perfect. Everything's lining up well. All I need is my rubber band and my paper clip. So take that rubber band and slide it. And I'm just going to bring it all the way around. All the way around here. Okay, so now the rubber band is suspended on the paper clip. So clever. Take the end of the rubber band and we're going to thread it through from the front to the back. Boom. Then turn it over and thread it back, just the rubber band back to the outside. And catch it. Okay, now here's the fun part. Just loop the rubber band right back onto the clip and center it. So clever. I love this. Okay, so that whole works, just fits right on there. Plus you still have a nice smooth surface on the back on which you can glue. So if we had put the rubber band all the way through to the back side, the surface wouldn't be quite as smooth for attaching to the center section of our cover. So I'll take my needle tip applicator with the bookbinding glue. And if you did subscribe to the Retreat in a Box, you will have received a supply kit. And in that kit, you'll find a 2-ounce bookbinding glue bottle and your very own needle tip applicator just for this particular day's work. When you attach this, make sure you don't attach it into any of the spines so that it freely opens and closes as planned. We are almost there. Just kind of make sure this is nice and straight in there. Lovely. Okay, last but not least, we have the pocket. You can either do this with the smooth side facing up so that it's not visible on that side, or you can have the seam and the flap facing up. I chose this direction. That's just your preference. I'm going to make a mark 1 inch from the bottom edge of the left corner. Mind you, I have the piece facing vertically in front of me. And I will also mark 1 inch from the right edge at the top. So 1 inch from the bottom, 1 inch from the right, and here I have 2 lines. You can mark them and then cut with a ruler and craft knife, or cut with a trimmer or scissors, whichever you prefer. I'm just going to go ahead and use a craft knife. You know what, I'm going to rotate this. So I'm connecting those marks with my ruler. I'm also protecting the portion of the envelope that I want to keep. Either way, just remove that angle. Now I have a nice angled pocket that still has a side seam so that things are less likely to fall out. That's the only reason why I'm even having you measure in the first place. When you install the pocket, I think it would be preferable to install it so that the angle is open to the spine versus open to the outside of the book where things are likely to fall out as well. So this is how I want it to adhere, and I will apply the bookbinding glue for sure to the outer perimeter of the pocket and just a little bit through the middle. It's plenty. And adhere that. So now the right flap goes in. Here's my pocket that I tacked down. You can still put things in there as well. It goes in and over. And all I need is to close the whole works with my pen. And that's a wrap on the Mobile Office Notebook. I hope you had some fun and you take some good notes while you're on the go.